And just like that, the season's effectively over. The wind down starts with all kinds of major players ending their seasons. Marianne Vos and Fem van Empel have confirmed they won't be racing anymore this season, and they'll be far from the only ones. Tom Pidcock, to the contrary, is supposedly pretty happy to show off his new rainbow jersey during a few more crosses, if rumours are to be believed. With the season being so close to its close, honestly, I don't really have a lot more to talk about. I'll be doing a bit of wrapping up next week, but it leaves us in this weird uncanny valley now, where we finished but we've also not. So this week I thought I'd give you a little rundown on the plans of all your favourite crossers, so you know just what they'll be up to until we all kick off again in September. But before that, I'm going to give a quick little preview to this weekend's action in Maldegem and Lille, because these are supposed to be previews to the weekend's crosses. On Saturday, we should have had the boulders course in Kruijbeke, but it got cancelled. Instead, Etios will be organising the park course in Maldegem on this date. I'll be honest, I don't entirely remember when Maldegem was supposed to be, but it's on the 5th of Feb now. The first half of the course makes desperate use of a little hill and a sand pit, whilst the back end runs through the park and forest, hence the name. I mean, what can I say? It's very Etios course. There's not a lot more to add. I also wouldn't expect a splendid start list here. Maybe the few odd good names though. Someone like Laurens Sweek is probably about the level here. On Sunday we then get the Croate course in Lille, round 7 of the X2O Trophy. Lille is again famed for its sand held on the beach of a small lake. It's quite a well loved course that has a traditional place as the first race post World Championships. Again, the first half is lots of sand, this corner being probably best known for its difficulty, before the riders again enter a forest with lots of short ups and downs. This bit's always a good watch and it's pretty technical. The whole course honestly is quite good and worth a watch. However, due to its position in the calendar, not every rider will be there. So let's talk about where they will be, probably. So let's first run through what the women will be getting up to during the summer. Largely you can split them between the mountain bike and the road, with a handful of people combining both. The easiest place to find crossers racing during the summer is with the Plantur-Pura road team. The team is the women's equivalent to men's team Alpecin Phoenix, falling under the same management structure. Plantur-Pura's lineup includes Celine del Carmen Alvarado, Maron Bakker, Sanne Kant, Kiona Krabbe, Julie de Wilde, Jara Kastelein, Jintse Peters, Barte Truijen, Inge van der Heijden, Karen Verheerstraten, Aniek van Halve, Millie Cousins, Bug Pietersen and Annemarie Worst. Quite the list. Exactly what these riders will be doing as far as the road is concerned is not yet known. There's no real structure for the season announced yet. Plantur-Pura, however, do have a wildcard for Paris-Roubaix Femme, as well as Nogre Koersen and La Flèche Wallonne. Last year they rode the Ronde too, which with this team I imagine they'll be welcomed back. Sanne Kant has a history of decent road performances, but I'd say the standout rider amongst this lot is probably Jara Kastelein. During last year's classic season it was Kastelein who flew Pantour's flag the highest, finishing 15th at Dwars door Vlaanderen, in the lead chase group that is. At the Ronde last year, Kastelein was amongst the first 10 over the final climb of the Oude Kwaremond in the wheel of Cassia Niewiadoma, before a touch of wheels brought her down just before they hit the Paterberg. There is quite some potential in Kastelein on the road. Expect a handful of Plantur riders, most likely Alvarado, Pietersen and Worst, to take up some mountain biking too, especially Pietersen is quite the talent, taking silver at the European Under-23 Cross-Country Championships last year. Another silver medalist from those European Championships was Fem van Empel. She was second in the cross-country eliminator. Whilst most of Plantur riders will likely be finishing their cross season with Lille, Gavre and Brussels, Van Empel, who rides for Paul Sauzen of course, has decided to end her season early following the rather bitter disappointment of her third place at the Worlds. You'll likely be seeing Van Empel in all sorts of mountain bike competitions throughout the years, and chances are you'll see her Paul Sauzen teammate Denise Betsema too. Betsema's main focus is the cross, but she's not shy of making a handful of appearances on both the mountain bike and in road racing. Star Casino riders Anna Kay and Marion Norbert-Ribeyrolles spend their summer months riding for the road team Rupel Cleaning. The team will be starting Omloop het Nieuwsblad. Kay also goes off-road fairly regularly, and depending on how she's recovering from the concussion she suffered in Hoge Heide, I'd venture you'll be seeing these two finish the cross season too. Sticking with the mountain bike, most French riders seem pretty content within the discipline. The Clausels spend their summer months on the trails, and Line will nowadays be racing amongst the under-23 discipline, having outgrown the junior category in which she is the defending world champion. Burquier has announced her season is over. However, I believe Helene and Perrine Clausel are still racing. My French isn't great though, so don't completely quote me on that one. Whilst Burquier will be making her name amongst the under-23s, Italy's Eva Lechner will be fighting out right at the top of the elite mountain bike categories. Her Italian counterpart, Silvia Persico, will be sticking to the road most likely. She rides for Valcar Travel and Service, and therefore you'll see her probably throughout most of the big races at the season. Maybe not right at the front of them though. Now we head to the larger groups of more specific people, those who follow their own path to similar destinations. These remaining riders are largely road focused, with one big exception. That exception being Blanca Catavache. She is the woman's equivalent to Mathieu van der Poel, the woman who can do all and will do all. And she's also the only rider so far who's actually announced a calendar. Thank God. Or whoever at SD Works does the planning, that is. Contrary to what most predicted, Vas won't be riding the cobbled classics. Her road season will start with the Amstel Gold Race, before focusing on the Ardennes Classics. Vas will also make her Grand Tour debut at the Giro Donne. Knowing Vas, she'll presumably throw some mountain biking between all these road races too, but she seems pretty content with this year being more focused on the road. She's supposedly a huge fan of Anna van der Breggen, her new DS, so you know, that might have weighted her decision a bit. This really could be Vas's proper breakout year. After essentially breaking out last year with only 10 race days, she'll do a proper season this year and probably blow some minds. Another rider I think could break out on the road this year is Clara Honsinger. Honsinger is now a World Tour level cyclist. Her team, Tibco Silicon Valley, moved up to the World Tour ranks for this season, gaining support of the EF Foundation, becoming EF Education Tibco Silicon Valley Bank. Quite a long name. This means Honsinger will be in one of these utterly brilliant jerseys though, so that's always a positive. For Clara, this season will be mostly about exploring the road more and finding her feet after last year's debut season. We do know a few things for certain though, the main one being that she's provisionally on the start list for Paris-Roubaix, which I find really quite exciting. I imagine this means a larger classic season too. I think the Ronde could be a good fit for Honsinger. She's also announced that she'll be riding one of the Giro or the Tour, which one is not yet known as of now. Honsinger has also talked about wanting to ride the Amstel Gold Race, due to these roads feeling like home roads after all the hours training here during the cross season when she's cooped up in Limburg in the Netherlands, where the race is held. We'll see for the Oregon native what exactly ends up happening, but considering how Kostelein, a rider I'd call quite similar to Honsinger, is able to go quite far in these races, don't be surprised if Honsinger suddenly is right at the spicy end of a monument. Trek Segafredo have two crossers under their ranks, the silver medalists in the elite and under-23 categories at the Worlds most recently, Lucinda Brandt and Shirin van Anrooy. Both will likely be making a fairly solid go of the road, but for Brandt, for sure the focus is more on cross than the road. Van Anrooy will be aiming to please on both sides of the sport, presumably. Both riders rode a solid road season last year, Brandt even claiming herself the mountains classification at the Giro. Brandt has made no secret of the fact that she wants to ride Paris-Roubaix, and after missing out on it last year due to the October move, I'd wager she'll be pushing to start there. Likewise, I think Van Anrooy has the ability to do well in the classics in the future. Maybe we'll see her there. I don't really know. She's still very young and she's still got a lot of discovering to do, quite frankly. But I'm sure you'll see her race at some point. Finally, we have our brand new, for the 8th time, world champion. Marianne Vos has finished her cyclocross season, that much is known. But what exactly her plans are for the road for the coming season is as of yet unknown. I'd imagine the cobbled classics seem the most obvious target, one or all of the Ronde, Amstel and Roubaix. Vos hasn't announced a calendar yet, but come on, it's Marianne Vos. Expected to be near the front of every single major race all season. I imagine the Tour will be a big target too. And so that leaves me with two names that I don't really know too much about. Magali Rochette races as a privateer, so doesn't really have any team commitments that would hint as to what she's going to be getting up to. Last year her only road appearance was second at the Canadian Nationals behind Alison Jackson. Rochette lives and breathes cross. I'm scared if I even mention the word fever I might actually summon her like some kind of crazy cross demon. Anything Rochette does will be focused on being even better again next year, when she'll be looking to do better at cross again and keep this pretty impressive growth going. And then you've got Zoe Backstedt, who might now be a somewhat lofty name in cross terms, but on the road she's still a junior with no team attached to her. Recently it's come out that Patrick Lefevre, cycling's most successful boomer, is hoping to strike a partnership with the Tourmont CX team, who are currently in partnership with Intermarché, the team that Zoe Backstedt is also attached to. Neither Intermarché nor Quickstep currently have a women's team, but Lefevre is in partnership somewhat with Next Generation Racing, and he might just be thinking that Backstedt could be the prize talent he needs to compete at the top of women's racing. Or at least that's what people with way more knowledge than me are saying about this situation. This whole Tourmont Quickstep Intermarché love triangle could get a bit freaky. I'm curious to see where it goes, because it'll have big impacts on the future teams of Backstedt, but also the likes of Marie Schreiber and Zadie van Zinay. Sticking to the Tourmont subject, on the men's side they've got a few good riders too, most notably Quinten Hermans, who last year rode the Giro for Intermarché Wanty-Groupe Gobert. This year the rumours are Hermans will be making the Tour de France squad. Hermans has grown into a genuinely really solid road racer, most fitting the role of an escape artist in the vein of Thomas de Gent, something like that. His main Tourmont teammate is Corné van Kessel. Van Kessel equally rides for Intermarché, but is more reserved to smaller local races. Emile Verstringer and brand new under-23 world champion Joran Wieseure are part of this Intermarché team too, functioning more at the Van Kessel lower level racing, but we'll see them grow throughout the future, hopefully. Whilst most of the women at Balsauser and Balwaser Trek have pretty cool summer jobs, the men don't really. Elie Iserbyt, Laurens Zweig, Michael van Toerenhout, Toon Aerts and Lars van der Haar all spend most of their summer riding minor races throughout the Benelux. Expect them to do so again. No real interesting things here, but you might see them if you live near. The one outlier amongst them is probably the man with the biggest historical name attached to him. Thibaut Nys is the under-23 European champion on the road. This kid has genuine serious talent. He was 6th at the Worlds. Nys will likely be riding a somewhat similar races to his teammates. He is still contracted to Balwaser Trek of course, but expect some showings in under-23 competition too, and expect him to probably do quite well in those as well. Contrary to the other cross teams, Alpecin Fenix are a serious road team too. Their crossers aren't so much crossers anymore either. With Philip Valsleben's retirement and Ben Turner's transfer to Ineos, that leaves two crossers in the Alpecin Fenix ranks, Gianni Vermeers and Tim Merlier. Merlier will again be focusing on the Sprinters Classics, Scheldeprijs, Brugge de Panne, stuff like that, before heading to a Grand Tour. Merlier has expressed interest in once again doing the Giro Tour double, but we'll see if he ends up doing that. Gianni Vermeers will be focusing largely on the Classics, presumably now being the team's leader for the Ronde and the rest of the Belgian cobble races. Vermeers was 7th last year. He also took 10th in Gent-Wevelgem and 15th at that Paris-Roubaix is an impressive feat nonetheless. Vermeers also rode the Giro last year and did pretty well there, and might well do another Grand Tour this year. However, his main focus should be the cobbles, as of course Alpecin are with one large question mark in that department. Mathieu van der Poel is still out. The back is not fixed and likely won't be for a while. Alpecin Fenix are absolutely focusing on total recovery, which is completely the right decision. I'd be pretty surprised to see Van der Poel race any of the classics this season. It feels way too early. I'd say the two at the earliest, targeting the fall with the Lombardia and the Wollongong Worlds, makes the most sense to me. Of course, much like everyone else, I don't really know how mature he is, and I don't want to make too many suggestions and guesses and make all these assumptions about when he'll be fit. Let the guy rest, see when he's back. Hopefully it's in time for next year's cross season. One man whose goals are very well established is Wout van Aert. He wants a cobbled monument, be it Flanders, Roubaix or both. Van Aert is desperate to deliver the win now after a handful of near misses in both races. Wout will start his road season with Omloop at Nieuwsblad before riding Paris-Nice and Milan-San Remo. After that he rides the E3-prijs, Gent-Wevelgem, the Ronde, Amstel and Roubaix. His only other confirmed race so far is obviously the Tour de France. One of Wout's major rivals on the road could well be our brand new world champion. Tom Pidcock will ride a packed early season as he embarks on his quest to become the first man to unite the mountain bike, cross and road world titles. Pidcock will kick off his season in the Algarve before riding both Omloop and Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne. Strade Bianche, Milan-San Remo, Dwars door Vlaanderen and de Ronde are also on his calendar. He will then attempt to actually win Amstel properly this year before looking to defend the Brabantse Pijl, the race he did actually win. Then he'll be racing La Flèche Wallonne and Liège-Bastogne-Liège too. And then he's still not done because he's also doing the Giro. Pidcock will almost certainly also be doing some mountain biking too, largely targeting both world championships on the road and mountain bike as well, I imagine. Pidcock, by the way, has been united with a former teammate recently, Ben Turner. Former teammates at the development team Trinity Racing, Turner recently made the switch to Ineos too. Ben brands himself as a classics rider, hoping to gain experience throughout this season, I believe. The third Trinity rider I'm going to mention is currently still on the team, but not for much longer. Cameron Mason has announced he will be leaving Trinity at some point this year. As of yet it's unknown when or where he's heading, but Ineos seem a possible fit. It'd expand their cross roster further, and Mason has been targeting the road as well more and more. The one thing we do know about Cameron Mason this year is that he's riding the Cape Epic. We'll finish off with the French, with the revelation of last week's World Championships. Clément Venturini rode a genuinely awesome race to place himself 5th in Fayetteville. The Frenchman will now return to the road with his Age Desert team. Venturini tends to be a bit past punchy sprinter, last year riding Strade Bianche, the Dauphiné and La Vuelta. Expect a fairly similar season from him this year. Fellow Frenchman Joshua Dubois will focus on the mountain bike once again, aiming to add to his under-23 European and French titles. Finally, I want to actually talk about myself a little bit, which feels weird. I don't like injecting myself too much into these videos because it feels like I'm taken away from the riders, but with the season coming to a close, I'm left in a bit of a quandary. Next week I'll be doing a little recap of some of my favourite moments of the season, and I'm in the process of scripting a more comprehensive review too. But I want to keep making this weekly content because frankly it's good for my own health, and to actually be making this stuff is just good fun as well. However, there's not really a lot to talk about post February. The well dries up quite significantly in the coming weeks, so I don't really know what to do. I'm thinking about spending the summer months giving the odd recap on what the cross stars are getting up to in the summer. For example, what your Pidcocks, your Van Aerts, your Vassers, your Honsingers are doing. And I'm also thinking about maybe creating some sort of profile-esque videos about some older retired riders. For people who might not know them very well, someone like Sven Nys, Roland Liberton, Erik de Vlaming, Anka Koepfernagel, people like that. I don't really know for sure where we're going to go with this though, but I want to keep doing stuff. So if anyone has any good ideas that are creative and fun and contribute to, a conversation, then please do let me know because I'm thoroughly desperate for anything at this point. However, with that said, a huge thank you to all the people who do actually bother watching these videos. I hope you stick around and I hope you actually, enjoy what I'm doing. See yous all next week.